All right, welcome everyone to today's webinar. Today's also a little bit different session because we do have some panelists and we've got some people who are active. We'll give you some links for works to do during the session. So I hope you're looking forward to a very interactive session that we have. So let's go ahead and jump into some administrative things before we jump into our topic. Okay, intros. My name is Tom Wadelton. I am one of the full-time virtual CFOs at Summit CPA Group. So looking forward to facilitating today's session and really excited about doing that. So during our session today, this is a 1-credit session. People do need to attend all 50 minutes. We will send out CPE certificates. Most people on the session, except panelists, can't talk live, so please use the question function. I'll be monitoring that and asking as much as I can during the session that we have. We will send out slides at the same time. You'll also get a link to download the slides during today's session. I will say probably the most common question we get is, can I get a copy of the slides? So yes, you'll have the slides, an opportunity to grab them today, and they will be sent out after that time. I mentioned that I work for Summit CPA Group, so let me tell you just a little bit about our firm. We started in 2002. Since 2004, we've been providing CFO and back office accounting services to firms. Been doing the CFO services for a long time. In 2013, we got rid of the office and became a fully distributed firm. And then as of present, this happened last year, we joined Anders CPA Advisors. So we're in our division of Anders CPA Advisors, a St. Louis-based firm. And we're very excited about that merger and what things it can offer to us. Okay, a little bit about our main speaker today. So Douglas Ferguson is president of Voltage Control, and they are a change agency. They help people fully unleash their potential and offer training and collaboration services. They offer different sessions, psychological safety, and my favorite, play, to give people a good environment for making organizational change. Douglas, welcome. I will go ahead and stop sharing and let you go ahead and continue the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you for that intro. And I love that play is, you pointed out as your favorite, because
love it. I
think it often gets left out when we think about the corporate worlds we often find ourselves in. And I think, for some reason, when we leave the world of elementary school and then into high school, and certainly once we get out of college, it's like we stopped practicing. No one does stuff for kicks anymore. It's always like, hey, here's the real presentation. And sure, we might do some little rehearsals for things and whatnot, but everything's always for keeps. And so it's good to put some time in where we explore and we get curious, and that's where real innovation can start to flourish. So I love that you pointed that out, and more teams need to do it more. So excellent. Well, it's great to be here, and I've got a few things to share with everyone. And we're actually going to do some interactive stuff, some live coaching. We've got a few guests that are going to be on stage here momentarily. And before we jump into all that, I'm going to give you a little background around our philosophies around change and how we might encourage you to think about change a little bit differently within your organization. And maybe also it can be helpful because there's a couple of layers here, because we're going to be talking about a change that I've heard that many of you care about, which is offering virtual CFO capabilities. And in fact, I was a virtual CTO for many years before starting Voltage Control. So I know what that challenge is real.
Then, right?
Yeah, exactly. And so we're going to be focusing the activity portion on that. And so I just want to make sure to underscore these conceptual models or this belief, these principles we have around change can be applied to that personal change you're going through. And we're certainly going to use the change journey tool to do that. But also think about what changes your clients might be going through that you're helping them navigate, or you're coaching them through, and how some of these principles might apply in those situations. So it's kind of like two different perspectives you might think about as you're hearing some of the content, and then we'll get into your personal change journey. So with no further ado, I'm going to jump into my slides here, and bear with me because I need to share my screen so that you can see super sharply. So now we should be more high fidelity, and I'll get started. So
I'll just mention, Douglas, while you do that, I have launched the first polling question. You can go ahead, but people should answer that, and I'll end it here in a little bit.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah, there's going to be polling questions in the webinar. So
Yep.
those will be happening. So, and also feel free to drop, I like this to be as interactive as possible. So we are going to have 4 people on stage at some point, but if you have questions, feel free to drop those in chats, and those can be things that I point out or clarify, or we can kind of interact a little bit that way as well. So,
Okay.
topic of today is now to next, a change journey. And so I'm going to be sharing a change journey tool that we made, but I'd like to just frame any kind of change from the perspective of now to next, and also to point out that it is a journey. It is a continuous journey. And so we had to think about change as a state of mind. And we'll get into that in some of this content as well shortly. And I'm Douglas, and I love to help teams and organizations change. So that's what I do. And this is the change guide. I'm going to kind of walk through some of the principles from it. And if you want to, you can snag with the QR code. We're going to drop that into chats as well.
I am doing that now. Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. And and so if you're watching the video later, or if you happen to have your phone handy and you just want to snap it, that's great. But that's the change journey guide. And it's basically broken up into kind of 6 principles, and I'm going to walk through those one at a time momentarily. And these are the 6: change on purpose, humanize change, co-create the change, learn to change, embrace emergent change, and sustain change. So first of all, we got change on purpose. And really what that's about is clarifying your purpose. So, I would say, I want to offer virtual CFO capabilities as a change. Well, okay, that's an objective, but what's the purpose? Like, what's driving you to do that? Is it to be more strategic? Is it to grow your firm? Like, what are some of the drivers and reasons? And one of the best ways to really clarify purpose is to continue to drive deeper. Like, once you make a statement or a declaration to yourself, ask yourself why. Why is that true? What makes that important to me? Just keep drilling deeper and deeper and deeper until you get to that core deep reason and purpose, why this change matters and why continue on this journey. And you want to align the purpose with values. So thinking about, what are your company values? What do you individually value? What do your teammates value? What do your clients value? And if you can align all those together with the purpose, you're going to get a lot less friction along the way. And also thinking about what's already working. So engaging in what we call appreciative inquiry and appreciative interviews, even like asking people what's working, talking to people who've done it before, can help really be more purposeful, and even repeating the prior wins. And also just remembering that, hey, the future's bright, and this isn't about getting mired into the all the bits and nuances of change, because change can be daunting. But remember, we're always in pursuit of this vision that's out in the future in front of us. We want to humanize the change, right? Like so often, especially when you look at old school change management tactics and approaches, it's really mechanistic. It's really about the systems, the procedures, and the process. And, there's Gantt charts and there's timelines, but all change is human by nature. And so you're going to have people in your team behave differently, take on different responsibilities. You're going to have to interact differently. Your clients are going to expect different things of you. And so really getting curious about their experience.
Douglas, I would guess that's the one that we often forget, right? Because it's so logical. And I think of accountants. Would you agree with that? That's the one that everyone just forgets to even think of.
I wouldn't blame it on just accountants. So many people miss it, right? I think because there's the long history and these kind of more mechanistic change approaches that people, that's kind of the default. And also this kind of like fear of playing and experimenting and getting curious and just like trying to have all the answers. I feel like our school system has taught us to want to know the answers to things, and change that's not what change is about. We have to be curious, and we have to understand the emotions people might be going through. There might be people in the team that are really afraid of what this means, and just sitting down and having the conversations with them allows us to just sympathize and be there, and like maybe even change the way we approach it. And so we can't do that unless we get curious, have dialogue. And also another thing to keep in mind is change can really impact sense of self. So that could be you It could be someone on your team. Like when we're shifting and adopting our practice and the way that we do work. I mean, especially when we're working with people that are doing like cloud migrations, and where literally their title might change, and in their head they're thinking, "Oh, my job's going to go away." In fact, we've been working with a lot of AI projects lately, and people are adopting AI services, and it can be really daunting when it's like, wait a second, is this thing going to just completely take over everything I do? Because it really is replacing a lot of the mundane stuff. So a lot of the busy work and time that we've been, so it almost feels like, wait a second, it's taken over half my day. So does that mean they only need me half? No, it just means now you can spend the whole day doing the most important parts. And it's really hard for people to get to that point. And it's hard to look past the horizon. So what is it going to be like after we experience it and we're working in those ways? And so just understand it, acknowledge the fact that there might be a loss of identity or a fear of loss of identity, and just sit with that, inquire it. If we don't, then it's easy to sweep it under the rug, and then it's just never going to be able to build a solid structure on top of that shaky foundation.
Okay. Thank you. That's a very helpful description.
Yeah. And then co-creating the change. This is really important. And it's similar to humanizing, but humanizing is just about being curious and being aware of the factors that are at play, that this is human by nature. Co-creating means we're actually going to invite people to the table to actually make the change with us. So for instance, some of you might be thinking, oh, I want to offer virtual CFO services, don't know where to start. I got to have it all figured out and like lay out the plans and put it on the website and know exactly how to deliver it. But I would bet you that there's like some clients out, either prospects out there or existing clients that are ready and need the services. And if you went to them very open and said, let's figure this out together. I'm not sure how I want to structure this exactly, or, just involve them in the shaping of how things would ideally work for them. And you'll learn a lot from them. Also, you can bring other employees into the co-creation process, even advisors, and just the more people you can talk to and learn from and include in the creating the process, the better. And we're big fans of prototyping. But a lot of times people hear the word prototype and they'll think concept car or something, or like proof of concept. When we talk about prototypes, we mean even just napkin drawings and sketches. And, we're going to use a tool called Miro in a second. That can be a great way to create visual prototypes. Like if we're not sure how we're going to, heck, I'm sure you all create spreadsheets all the time where you might want to roughly model a financial scenario, but it's not it's not the perfect model. It might be the first version of the model, and you're kind of like, and you throw it away and make another one. That's what I mean by prototypes. And you can do that for anything, any decision, anything you're building. What's the smallest, tiniest early start to whatever you're trying to learn and get curious about. So that, and when we do that, we can visualize and we can share and we can learn from each other. So then learning to change. Learning to change is about shifting our perception about what change is and how we even just approach change. And I kind of talked about my beliefs that a lot of change management techniques these days are antiquated and are about being mechanistic and whatnot. And for this, we're talking about thinking in the terms of telling stories, experimenting, and play. We talked about play earlier. That can be really powerful. And if we're not thinking about change in those ways, we just need to reset and begin to learn how to change. And so we often will joke about helping people change the way they change. And so it's important to get meta for a little bit, and just think about how am I even going about changing? And so celebrating mistakes, experimenting, listening with empathy, all these things really important. Also, embracing emergent change. This is the idea that we can't just set a plan and just execute on that plan. If anyone's aware of agile software development, it's the idea, let's iterate and learn. So the prototypes play into this concept as well, but really acknowledging the fact that we can't just set a trajectory and ignore the weather patterns that are shifting. I like to give people the metaphor of like, if you get in a boat and say, I'm heading there, and you just set your coordinates and you go, and you don't account for the wind shifting direction at 10 o'clock and, whatever else that's happening, then you will drift off course quite drastically. But if you're constantly adapting, it's much quicker to get there versus drifting way off course, realizing it, and then having to course correct. And so really it's about just paying attention to what's emerging, being okay with the ambiguity. Because a lot of times people don't start because of lack of information and an inability to make decisions with a lack of information. And, embracing emergent change is about working in those moments when we don't have all the information and being okay with things evolving and surfacing in front of us.
Okay.
All right,
Douglas,
go ahead.
I will go ahead and launch a second full question.
So sustaining change is about acknowledging the fact that, change is constant. And so part of this is just an awareness, but also are we doing things like bringing fresh ideas in? Are we, especially if we're talking about a big change effort across a larger organization, are we acknowledging the people that put in a lot of work, promoting them for doing that, and then also bringing new people in? So if we have a change advocacy group, let's not expect them to be the same change advocacy group for 3 years in a row, right? Who's coming on, who's leaving, so we have fresh perspectives. How are we designing for nonlinear change too, so that we don't anticipate it just to go A, B, C, D. There might be loop backs that inform, we learned something around that emergent change stuff. Now let's go back to an earlier step and revisit that and be okay with that nonlinearity. And, just being mindful of the fact that we are going to have to work hard to keep up momentum. And so
that makes so much sense. As I think of a company who's going to do multiple changes, if people look around and say, oh, the ones who were on board in the last change and did well got promoted, and that's a continual thing, I can only imagine what that looks like if I'm interested in getting promoted and a new change comes in. Right. I'm probably much more likely to say, I want to jump in and do that because those people get rewarded versus maybe feeling like you got used up because you worked so hard and then went back to your old job and were just miserable.
Exactly. You see a lot of turnover and just people, it's really a big hit on morale when that happens. And then the actual change gets the blame when it's just some of the mechanics that we could have changed around the relationships and also how we celebrate and reward. So one thing I'm going to get into a little quick story here to set up the activity we're going to dive into, and then we'll get into the interactive stuff, which I'm excited about. So
good.
Change requires focus and intention. And so I love to tell the story about gold medalist. And it was early in my career when I read this research where they were talking about gold medalist or any successful athlete versus the athletes that maybe don't rise to that level of success. And we're not splitting hairs between silver versus gold or whatnot, but just really what's pushing the folks to this excellent level of execution. And what they found was that some folks dream about the destination and they're just focused on that. Oh, wouldn't it be great to be an amazing Olympian or what have you? The folks that are successful, the ones that get the gold or even the silver, the bronze, or even are allowed to compete, are the ones that they have that dream, they see it, but then they're obsessed about all the steps and all the things that you have to do, and they're just relentlessly executing. So it's that determination and that realization of all the things we need to do, and they just put in the work and put in the work and put in the work. And so while it's important to have that vision of the future, it's also important not to get fixated on it. Because if that's all we think about, then we don't put in the work. Right? The dream needs to be there and it needs to drive us, but we can't just sit around and think about it constantly. We have to put it in action. So with that, we're going to do
The change journey?
A change journey activity. And I've got 3 versions of the template. You don't have to download this now, but I'm just sharing this QR code so that you can, and we'll drop that into the chats as well. That link will take you to the landing page where you can pick which one you want. We have a PDF version if you just want to print it out and draw on it. We have a Miro version and a mural version. A Miro and mural are 2 advanced whiteboards, if you will. They go much further beyond Zoom or Microsoft or even Apple's new tool. They're much better at like real-time, multi-user collaborative sessions, and so we're gonna use that today. So that's, if you haven't seen that before, that'll be a treat. It's like really powerful and fun to do this kind of stuff. And so with that, I'm gonna dive in and kind of show you the template, and then we're gonna have and invite you to work alongside. Now, we are gonna drop the Miro link in, which just happened in the chats there.
Yep.
Yeah, and then we're gonna have a little visual alongside of it. But what I'm gonna recommend is if you're welcome to jump in and move around and play. I know that Andrew and I had a chance to chat, and so he's going to be in here working live. He just popped his video on, and so you can definitely follow along that way. Also, you can grab a piece of paper near you and just jot down this stuff, and that's an easy way to follow along. Another way, if you are familiar with Mural, you can actually clone the template and do your own on the side, but it's probably easiest just to do it on paper, just in the spirit of time. And the way, I'm just going to do a quick overview of the whole thing, and maybe I'll zoom in on fully here so that you can see more clearly. And this is based off of what's called backwards design. So we're going to start at the destination first. So we are going to start with that vision of the future, that dream. We want to have the gold medal. We want to be a virtual CFO. We want to offer those services. So that's the dream. But we're going to visualize it because it is a vision. So let's make it visual. There's a reason that it's called a vision. And we're gonna draw. We're gonna sketches. We're gonna have icons. We're gonna use metaphor. Like when you think in your head, what does this feel like? What does it look like, etc. Then we'll have a little mood board, if you will, a little dream board, and then we'll name our destination just to kind of give it and summarize it. And then we're going to work backwards, will be a little bit strange because most of the time everyone thinks about like what's the next milestone and what order are those in, and we'll get there once we get done with the journey. Creating the journey, we'll of course have the next steps and they'll be in order, but we're going to start at the destination and work our way backwards. So we're going to think, okay, if we're offering virtual CFO services one day, what do we think happened just before that? And then what happened right before that? And then what happened right before that? And then and so we'll drop in some milestones or some steps that we're taking along the way. And then we can identify any roadblocks that might be jumping out to you, because it's good to call them out, but we don't want to dwell on it, but it's fine to document them. And then finally, we're going to acknowledge any progress we've already made. So when we're adding the steps, we should also add steps we've already taken. So if there's things we've already done, that's part of our journey too. And then we'll mark where we're already at, and then we'll just have some conversations around what's next, and then we'll review and discuss around the non-linearity, the patterns, etc. So it's getting into some of the change philosophy stuff.
Yeah, and so just to be clear, Douglas, I mentioned this interactive session. Many people are used to watching. You're wanting us to actually go through and do this now. I mean, you'll tell us when, but be active. Don't just sit back and say, "Oh, that's interesting."
Yes, correct. And in fact, I'll be on my video sharing, so you'll be able to see Andrew walking through it. But I really want folks to be on paper, or if there's a tool they prefer to use, that's fine. It could be digital, but paper is really easy like to get started. And ideally, you'll walk away from this having made a journey. And it can be the start of going deeper into, getting to the point where you can start offering these services or making this change.
Great.
All righty. So Andrew is going to join us, and then I'm just going to kind of time us and walk us through each step. So I'm going to say, I'm going to give us a little bit of time. I'm going to give us 5 minutes to think about the vision of the future. And so, if you're at home, you can just start at the top of a piece of paper and just, I really encourage you to, you don't have to be an artist. It can be very abstract, but definitely try to make it visual. Try to avoid just sheerly writing words, because a vision is visual. And so anything you can think about that really demonstrates your vision of the future. And it could be this offering virtual CFO capabilities. It could be some other change, but I know that a lot of you are interested in virtual CFO services. So Andrew, they're going to invite you to take charge of the Miro here and start dropping in your vision, and everyone else do the same. So 5 minutes of depicting your vision.
That's great.
All right.
Yeah, and Douglas and Andrew are going to be talking about this, so please don't feel like you have to just watch what Andrew's doing and not work on your own. I think there's a chance to do both. Go ahead and work on things you want to, and then if you want to come back and see for reference what things he's done, I think that'd be a great option for people.
So just coming up on a minute left, I also just want to remind you to think about how it feels, what you see, what you hear. Move past the requirements and the explicit conditions, and think about is it joyous? Think about adjectives, what are you seeing, hearing, feeling?
Well,
all right, so I know this is moving a little bit faster than you might spend on it if you just really sat down. And other thing I'll say too, you can do this in different sessions. So you could work on a little bit at a time, come back to it. Doesn't have to be all in one session, but in today's moment, we're just gonna go a little bit swiftly so you can get a flavor for it. And I like the smooth that just popped up. I'm a big fan of the martial arts. Slow is smooth, smooth is fast. So that's great. Andrew and others, just take maybe 30 seconds here and just don't worry about being super wordsmithy, but let's just put on step 2, let's just throw a name for our destination. So it could be as simple as virtual CFO, if that was what you're doing. But now that you spent some time thinking about your vision and putting some context around it, how might you just describe it in a couple words? What's the headline name of the change? So we'll just do 30 seconds on that.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if that's exactly what you're looking for, Douglas, but that's how I feel, is that I feel like I'm stuck. If you've read E-Myth, I feel like I'm stuck as a technician, and I just want to break through being a technician. And that's what a lot of these pieces tie to.
Awesome. I'm going to put that here on the name. So hopefully others got their names done and it's time's up. So no worries if you didn't come up with a clever name. You can see here anything works. So now we're going to move on to our actual journey. And I really encourage you to work backwards. So really think about so specifically, since we can all see Andrew's, just use that as an example. We're looking at breaking through being a technician. So if you just hit that boundary of breaking through being a technician, what just happened? What is the step you took right before that happening? And jot that step in. And then what happened before that? And you just work your way down the road here, from E to D. And you don't have to place them on the letters. That's just to represent some progress. And so anywhere along the road, just working your way backwards. If you think of something that's comes after something you've already written, no worries, just put it in there. And if you're using the Miro, I recommend copying the gold stickies and just changing the text. But that's just a personal aesthetic thing. But ultimately, we'll have stickies along the journey and work your way backwards. I'm going to give us. We might not get all the way through. 5 minutes isn't a ton of time to think about a really complex journey. So just keep that in mind. So think about, bigger steps and moments, and you can come back and fill the. I would go breadth first, and then think about depth. So I'm going to so that ideally in 5 minutes you'll get to the beginning. One other thing for everyone to keep in mind too is make sure when you start to get close to the starting point that you include things that you may have already done. Because if this is an important change, you've probably already done some stuff. You attended this webinar. Let's at least put that on there, right?
Yep.
What else have you done? Like just being a part of this community is probably a step in that direction. So let's make sure we're including the steps that you've already done as well. So oh, I see a sticky. Someone showed up was late. So if you're late and curious what's going on, you can write this stuff out on paper, or just follow along. Right now, in the case of Andrew, he picked his destination as breaking through being a technician. So, like, how can he provide probably more strategic services and not kind of be so in the mix on the more granular things? And so he's working his way backwards on the steps that he's taken. So if you could quickly think about change or destination you're seeking, if it is CFO services or whatever, you can start working your way backwards, thinking of the steps that come right before.
Yep.
And you can do it on paper. All right, super cool, super cool. We got a full journey here. I'm sure there's more stuff that could be added over time, but it's looking pretty chunky. So gonna ask you all now to just think about, are there any roadblocks or obstacles you want to call out? We're only going to spend a minute on this. We don't want to dwell on the negative or kind of distract us from taking stuff into action. But are there any things we would just want to acknowledge? Like, that's going to be hard, or there's something that we got to figure out. That's an unknown. On the Miro board, we can drag and copy these little red stop signs, but just a minute to ponder where the obstacles might be. All right, fantastic. Now, I want you to, if you're using the Miro, you can just drag the little location icon, this guy, wherever you are currently. Just acknowledge the progress you've already made. If you're doing it at home, you can just draw a little mark on your journey or circle the spot that you're at. Just indicate where you're at so you can acknowledge that, yeah, we made some progress here. Just going to give you should be able to make that decision pretty quick. So I did see it move. Andrew, did you lock in your spot there?
Yeah, I feel like I'm here, although this is the reason why this is a stop sign is because, I tried to roll it back a little bit because this has been our process over the last 12 to 14 months
cool.
of what we did. Yeah. And this is, I could definitely see, I don't know, Douglas, if you're going to get into this, but I could see taking this, starting back here, and then developing a whole nother pathway following the reset after we have that core offering, even having a whole nother run at it. But
yeah,
at least
for sure. For sure. Awesome. Well, in fact, now is a great time we don't have a ton of time left. And I want to make sure to talk a little bit about, so yes, that observation's very keen. We will often that's kind of what I was referring to around the nonlinearity. And in fact, if you look here on prompt number 7, it's reminding us that change is nonlinear, and to think about what things might fold back on each other, or like what branches there be. So if you're noticing those things, the visualization's kind of working, right? It's like, oh, I wasn't thinking about that before. Even if it's subtle, even if it's like, oh, that seems obvious. Well, it wasn't front and center. It wasn't something I was focused on. So that's the power of visualizing these things. And if you're working with your team too, it can be really, now you share this with your team, you got this visual prototype. Maybe they hadn't, maybe some of the stuff has been nuanced in your head and you thought they understood it, but when they see it like this, they're going to be like, oh wait, that's what this is about. So let's see here. I want to also, let's just in the spirit of time here, Larry, Jake, and Octavia, I'd like to just talk a little bit about your experiences. I think Larry was willing to even share, so he can hold his map up to his camera potentially, and just I'm going to invite y'all. So we'll kind of model step 6 and 7. So if you were to do this to your team, and Andrew, you can hang out as well because we'll include you in this. But just kind of modeling these last 2 text prompts, 6 and 7, which are to have some dialogue with the team or even with yourself. Thinking carefully about where you are, what's the next immediate step. And so, Andrew, I'm curious. You've got right here. You're either just finished or about to create core offering summary. So is the summary your next step?
I think so. So we kind of had, we took what we had from the course and then said, all right, what do we need specifically for our niche and a niche? And then from there said, all right, where did scope really creep this year? And rolled that stuff back, made it ancillary services, and we charge extra for it. And we just went through, created a Google Doc, and it's part of our marketing write-up now. Like, hey, this is what you can expect per month. This is roughly what we're going to hopefully accomplish, and set expectations about what month of the year. Because we found one of our biggest challenges year one was everyone's like, this sounds great, we want all of this all the time. And it's like, well, we've got checkpoints established through the year when we visit on these things. So we've been clear with articulating those client expectations.
Nice. The other thing to think about is when you create the offering summary, think about what I was saying with prototypes. And treat the first one as a rough draft, or it is version 1, knowing that it can adapt from there, and listen carefully when people see it and respond to it, because there's so much can be learned just in how they're reacting to it. So that seems like the next step's pretty clear there. And so
real quick about the prototyping, because that was something that when you said that, I got a jolt from it, because that's exactly what we did. And I did not think it would go as well as it has. But being candid of saying, we know what we're talking about, but we don't know what we're doing. And there's a difference. Trust us as we develop how we know what we're doing. We will always know what we're talking about, but what we're doing may not always be readily apparent. That has been huge for us. And I wish someone had given me that advice a year ago.
Amazing. Yeah. I've got a pal who totally reinvented his professional services company to verticalize, because they were horizontal and we're going out to a very specific vertical. And he said that they struggle with it. And the turning point for them was when they just totally changed the website and just claimed it. And he said, claim it before you possess it. So it's quite often it's really scary to come out and say, hey, we are the software development firm for financial services institutions, right? That's really scary if you don't have all the expertise, but you're never going to get the expertise until you do it. And so claiming it and making people comfortable with the fact that, hey, I'm planting my flag here, and then that'll create the opportunity to learn more. So I love that that's the next step, and that you're leaning into that. So I just put a check mark here, but just ask folks to circle or check or somehow star and identify that this is the step that we're going to take next. This is the thing that that's going to unlock the potential. And this poll is kind of getting in my way. No worries. My own tech issues. Excellent. Well, I'm curious if Larry, Jake, Octavia are able to join the stage and share any thoughts as well. Might be interesting to compare and contrast between
Mhm.
the panelists, like what their experiences were like.
Jacob or Octavia?
There we are. Jacob,
Hello.
welcome. Welcome. So yeah, I'm really curious to hear about your how the journey kind of unfolded for you as you were walking through it. If you've got something on paper and you want to share it, you could hold it up for folks, or just tell us like what did it feel like? Where what did you find helpful? Where did you struggle? Just any insights that you might be to share.
Octavia, you want to go first?
Can't hear you.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. My mic was off. So I would say for me, the insight, I think about what we're doing right now. We're, unlike a lot of virtual CFO firms, we're actually moving back into a building that I just purchased. So the insights is how we're going to create this hybrid work environment for the team so that they still have like work-life balance. So that would be kind of where I am and how we're going to do that the correct way and still, again, like I said, have the team still have that work-life balance.
And what was your next step that you identified, like as your kind of the thing you can kind of put into action now?
I'm getting insight from the team. So we're
yeah.
doing a 4-in-1, right? So 4 days on, 1 day off, where 4 days we're in the office, 1 day we're working virtually from our home office. And so getting insight and input from them on what would make them happy, as well as how it's going to work with the team, with the entire company and our clients.
Nice. And how big's the team?
Right now we have 5 people and I am hiring 2 from 2 other positions.
Congrats. Good. Wish you luck on the hiring, and it's always fun to be in growth mode. How do you think you'll approach bringing the team in and getting their voice on what's important?
So far I've included them in the journey. So as far as going to the office and picking out the paint and the colors and, having them select their office and what we're going to do and things like that. And I feel like from the feedback that I've received thus far, that has them excited, right? I've allowed them to help with picking furniture and going to furniture stores. And so I think more of that and more of when we get into the office, how do we make it fun, but then we still get the work done?
Yes.
I think doing more of that will help them be engaged, stay engaged, and want to remain at the company.
I love that. Yeah. And we have this phrase around here that authorship is ownership. So when you're allowing them to make decisions and have a part in the shaping, then they feel like it's their office. It's not just your office that they got invited to come to.
Yes, and they're super excited. And another thing we're doing a private grand opening, and then we're going to do a public grand opening. So for the private grand opening, I informed them today, make sure you invite your family and friends to see your office and things like that. So it seems like they're excited. They're like, yes, I'm going to share it with everyone. So yeah.
Great. Well, I know we're running out of time, and Jacob, I apologize. Tom has some stuff to do to wrap up here, but maybe I could follow up with you later and hear about your change journey, or maybe we can put it in the email follow-up or something.
No worries.
Thanks everyone for being here, and I wish you all the best of luck on your journeys.
Yeah. Douglas, thank you so much. And I think for most people, I would hope you would agree, this is really the beginning, right? We went through that exercise probably quicker than you would have many people do it. But I think going through that, and you could see Andrew doing this. Andrew did a very nice job, but it was sort of, oh yes, I forgot about this and this and this. And it really builds a nice picture and how easy to do it on paper, as opposed to making mistakes and sort of tripping over things in real life when it takes a lot more effort. So thank you for doing that. Okay, let me help us wrap up here. You should be able to see my screen now. Okay. Thank you for learning. We hope you want to keep learning. We do have the Modern CPA Success Show that people can watch and learn similar topics to these, things like that, so you can catch up on that. If potentially on your journey, sorry, let me jump to this one. If on your journey was learn more, we do have the virtual CFO playbook that people can learn. It's a pretty intensive 15 module course, but takes you through everything that we have done from marketing, how to deliver services, meeting cadence, pricing, everything else that we have done. That comes with a free coaching session when you complete the course, a free subscription to our Slack community, and also weekly fireside chats where we sit down with other people trying to do this and kind of work through issues, as well as some discounts. So we hope people would like to do that. So I'll wrap up here. We did have a couple questions about will we see slides, will we see all these other things? And Douglas, I think, am I right that you had a link where you were going to show people if they wanted to grab the slides today? Did you want to go ahead and show that? We will send out the slides, but I know that you had that. So if you don't mind, you can share that piece. Whoops, let me stop sharing. And wrap with that. If people want to grab the slides now, like we had said, we will send that out, and replay will be on YouTube. You'll get a copy of the replay. Also earmarked CPE will have the replay of this as well. There you go. So if people want to scan that to see the slides that we have today. Okay, thank you everyone. This was a great, really interactive session. We got lots of questions during the session, so I really appreciate that. I hope everyone has a great day. And thanks to our panelists and Douglas for you also.
Thank you.